quote, "I dream, therefore I exist," end quote. In this video, I'll be talking about what is considered the first modern Swedish novel, The Red Room by August Strindberg. He is often called the father of modern Swedish literature. August Strindberg was a progressive intellectual and saw the society of Swedish elites as corrupt, reactionary, and stale. He loved France and even wrote some of his works in French and was friends with Émile Zola. Later, he became an atheist and fell in love with Nietzsche's work. During his period, he wrote mostly in a naturalist tradition, which had been popularized by Zola. At the time, realism and romanticism were the dominant literary forms. Realism is the objective approach that focused on telling stories as it was without judging the conduct of the characters. A good example is Madame Bovary. Flaubert tells the story of Emma's affairs and addiction to shopping without condemning or praising her. Romanticism, on the other hand, focused on the emotional, intuitive, and impulsive side of human experience and opposed modernity's cities in favor of nature. Naturalism is somewhere in between. It employed a scientific approach to literature, but it also wanted to change society for better. August Strindberg wanted class and gender equality. Here's a quote, "I am a socialist, a nihilist, a republican, anything that is anti-reactionary. I want to turn everything upside down to see what lies beneath. I believe we are webbed, so horribly regimented that no spring cleaning is possible. Everything must be burned, blown to bits, then we can start afresh," end quote. Later, he experienced madness and paranoia, and perhaps due to his love for absinthe, the green fairy as it was known. But also he was persecuted for his views on women, later accused by women as he attacked marriage as an institution. Here's a quote, "If you are afraid of loneliness, don't get married." Here's another quote, "Love between a man and a woman is war." His personal life too took a turn. He got divorced from his wife, Siri, and turned that experience into a novel. He went through a period of religious mysticism. He believed that he was a medium for message from some supernatural powers. His religious return had a profound influence on his later writing. He took up painting and produced some great art too. After this experience, he became more sober and returned to Stockholm and established a minimalistic theater, which was a success. By the end of his life, he had become a national celebrity in Sweden. He died aged 63. Jorge Luis Borges called him his god alongside Nietzsche. The Red Room, with the Swedish title Röda rummet, was published in 1879. I read the 1913 English translation by Eli Schleusner. Okay, let me briefly summarize the novel. Arvid Falk, the protagonist, is in fact a young August Strindberg, disguised as a civil servant who hates his job, the terrible bureaucracy, and the slog of working in an office. He asks himself the question, what does his life mean? He doesn't have an answer. He quits his job and returns to his elder brother, whom he thinks has cheated him out of the inheritance. But he is too timid to confront him. Instead, he takes refuge among a group of poor artists who meet regularly in the Red Room of a restaurant to talk politics, art, and everything in between, hence the title The Red Room. It might also hint to the socialist tone of the novel, perhaps alluding to the color red as the socialist color. I'm not sure. But they are not socialists in a revolutionary sense. They are idealists who worry more about Aristotle than their dinner. As the story progresses, Arvid tries to be a writer. We meet other Swedes, like politicians, publishers, philanthropists, and theater elites of Stockholm, who show common traits such as corruption, deception, and hypocrisy, like a Darwinian social world. Poverty on the one hand, and the corrupt elites who are blind to the inequality and injustice on the other hand. The group of artists try to make sense of all these as they struggle with poverty. Some commit suicide, but most of them appear to accept society as it is without managing to make a dent in the system. The failure of the Paris Commune, a communist revolution in Paris in 1871, can be felt in Stockholm, and the disappointment and the pessimism among the characters. By the end, they all end up being what you might characterize in modern sense as reformed of their early revolutionary ideas. Arvid gets married and finds a job at a school. In a sense, he's rehabilitated into a society he deeply hated. Strindberg was famous for fictionalizing his real life. It is based on his own life experiences. The first thing you notice, Sweden wasn't a comfortable place to live back in the 19th century. Poverty was a harsh reality and a very cold country. The tough environment meant that all the characters at the end somehow reconciled their lofty ideas of change with the reality of life. Now you call that Nordic pragmatism. One might say that the seeds of social welfare system that we commonly associate with the Nordic countries were sown, perhaps not not directly as a result of this novel, but by the later generations of Swedes who were perhaps influenced by Strindberg. There's also an episode about how advertising manufactured literature. So an American capitalist produced literature by heavily advertising about an unknown author to propel him into stardom. Today that's how literature is produced, mostly anyway. The novel starts off really well. You might think it's a tale of two brothers or a group of friends. Then it becomes the tale of Stockholm, the story of Sweden. Young idealistic men going through an idealistic phase, driven out by what they see as a nasty real world, but slowly they too accept it. It's not a page turner for sure. I think its value is not in this storytelling or plot, but it's a great mirror of Sweden at the end of 19th century. It's like the picture of Sweden before the welfare system. Strindberg is perhaps one of those people whose sharp criticism of inequality and hypocrisy may have had a huge influence in shaping Sweden later on. Here's a quote: "I loathe people who keep dogs. They are cowards who haven't got the guts to bite people themselves." I think he was talking about politicians, elites, aristocrats who hide behind the police and soldiers, or who shape institutions that protect them and their interests. Thank you for watching.